All right, Shane Button here with Jamie Campbell. You're probably familiar if you've watched a Jays game or two with Jamie's pedigree and informational knowledge on Blue Jays and baseball in general. And of course, he's got a pretty strong connection here to Timmins. You may have heard the term. He hit it all the way to Timmins. The T-shirts that are being made by Tourism Timmins now, with I believe the money helping support the hospital up here as well, which is a fantastic cause and a great idea. And I know Jamie, they reached out to you about that. We'll talk about that in a second. But first, for anybody that's not familiar, what is your connection up here to Timmins, and what is it that's caused you to name drop us on so many occasions?
Well, Shane, I'll keep it as brief as I can, but when I was 17 years of age, I was sent forcefully by my parents up to Timmins to work for the Ministry of Natural Resources. Admittedly, at the time, I was reluctant to go, but I was there for 9 weeks working in a very remote area and stationed in a very remote area about 40 minutes outside of town called Lipset Lake. And that 9 weeks changed the direction of my life in the best possible way, in that area of this country gave me a real indication of what independence could feel like. At 17, I hadn't really felt that yet. So that experience taught me that you don't always have to be tied to your home and to your parents. And I believe every teenager goes through that at some point, and it's very healthy that they do. My time there in 1984 was so meaningful that I signed up for a second session in the summer of 1985. So that is why I spent 2 years in the area, and they are two unforgettable years.
And then, so you came back during the pandemic and helped out with some PPE deliveries up here with,
Mhm.
like paramedics and stuff like that. Had you been back before that, or was that kind of your first time back here in all of 25 years?
I
30,
had
25 years.
not, yeah, I had not been back. There had been no opportunity for me to return. And then when the pandemic hit and I joined an organization that helped meet some of the volunteer needs of PPE for the health industry, I signed up to be what they called the Northern Driver. And the very first call that came in was from a paramedic in Timmins who said, "We are really suffering up here without masks and gloves and everything else." And I got together with the organization that I'd volunteered for and said, "I'll go. I'll drive to Timmins. If you can pack up my vehicle, I'll drive tomorrow morning." And the next morning, 7 a.m., I pulled out of the driveway and made it to Timmins midday. And it was such a surreal experience for me after, I don't know, 40 years of having not been there, to drive into the city and so clearly remember what it looked like. And
Yeah.
I'll never forget that.
Wow. And I know everybody up here was very appreciative of all of that, of course, as well. I was talking with our news reporter who was part of the Big Brothers program many, many years ago, and his little brother was a paramedic at the time when you were
Mm.
here too. So still talks about that pretty regularly. And I know everybody here always gets a kick every time you say he hit it all the way to Timmins and the big home runs. It's all over Facebook. Everyone's like, he said it, and they get all really excited about it. So where did it come from? Was it just out, did it just pop out one day, or had you planned on that at some point?
No, it did pop out one day. Most of the time we do a post game session on whatever game has just happened behind us. I will include a highlight pack of the uh, the game in case people missed it for some reason. And at some point, and this must have been 12 or 13 years ago, someone on the Blue Jays hit an absolute moonshot, and I sort of belted out without thinking about it that it landed in Timmins. And somebody reached out to me and said, "Wow, thank you for saying Timmins. Why on earth would you reference our city?" And then I realized, wow, it's kind of the first city that comes to mind for me. I was born in Oakville, raised mostly in Toronto, but lived in other places like Edmonton and Ottawa. But the impact that Timmins had on me as a young person was so profound. It was the first place that came to mind. And I just decided from that moment on that every chance I got, without overdoing it, I would have all home runs that I described land in Timmins. And it seemed to catch on. I'm glad I tried it because, quite truthfully, I get a lot of people coming by our set from Timmins who are grateful. It makes them proud to hear me say their city. And maybe I feel proud based on how that city impacted me.
It's always nice when you can visibly see the impact you've had on other people as well, right? When they
Mm-hmm.
come up to you, it's always nice to say, "Oh, I loved what you talked about X, Y, and Z." And this one's pretty straightforward. I know you had mentioned before we
Well,
started here.
Shane, you know what it has spawned, right? Is I get a lot of people from places in and around Timmins or in Northern Ontario, Sudbury notably. I get a lot of people from Sudbury saying, "When are you going to say it's going to land in Sudbury?" And I have to tell them quite politely, "I'm not going to." Right?
Right.
It's Sudbury, lovely place, and I'll be going up there this winter. But it didn't have the impact. It wasn't the place that my parents sent me in 1984. Unfortunately, that was Timmins, and so Timmins has that incredible impact, and it will be remembered by me for the rest of time. So, no disrespect to anybody in Sudbury or North Bay. I've heard them all. It's just I got to keep consistent on this.
Well, I know here in Timmins, we're thankful for that for sure. So you mentioned before we chatted, you've seen a few of the T-shirts at the last couple
Mm-hmm.
of games that was created by Tourism Timmins here.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, are you surprised you've got that many coming from this far away to go to the game? I know we've had people from Edmonton, or there's people from Alberta that were at the game last night, from what I heard,
Mm-hmm.
all over the place. But you said you saw three different people wearing them. It's
I
like,
did.
is that
I did.
surprising to you?
It should surprise me, right? It's not an easy drive from Timmins to Toronto. I know you can fly, but there's a great expense there. Um, I, I'm pleasantly surprised at the number of people, not just now that the Blue Jays are deep into the postseason, but during the regular season, who have made their way from Timmins. In fact, some family from Timmins came to the game on Sunday, which was game 6, and they drove down just for that game. They couldn't stay for game 7. Maybe they just didn't have tickets for game 7, and they were driving right back up the next day. And I thought that is real devotion to this baseball team. And lovely that the entire family, being from Timmins, stopped at my set to say hello. And they weren't even wearing the T-shirts. The other people I saw wearing the T-shirts had nothing to do with this family. So the support is incredible. And let me just say, Shane, whoever's idea this was, and I know that these funds are going to the oncology unit at the Timmins District Hospital, or the Timmins and District Hospital. I am floored with the idea, honored to be able to lend the slogan, obviously, and just really, really grateful to whoever it was that came up with this idea, because I've been to that hospital, and I'm really thankful that someone's going out of their way to help support it.
Yeah, well, Timmins used to be called the city with the heart of gold, right? The new Timmins slogan is Timmins, I'm in. Both of them just as relevant in the sense of the giving that we have here. Whenever there's
Mm-hmm.
fundraisers of any sort, it's always a big deal, and people give back. So it doesn't surprise me someone came up with a way to sell shirts and make them charitable at the same time. It seems to be something we do up here quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
So now let's reshift our focus to Friday, Game 1, World Series. Dodgers come into town, and one of the things that we've talked about here in the office all day today is, man, you go through Judge, you go through Raleigh. Now you've got Otani coming up. At the end, no one can say if the Jays walk away with this World Series that they didn't earn it, going against three of the absolute best in the game.
Well, let's be honest. In the expanded playoff era, any team that wins the World Series is going to have to go through highly competitive after highly competitive team. This is nothing new. It's just that to fans of the Blue Jays, it's been so long since they've advanced in
Yeah,
a playoff series, let alone gotten to the World Series. We need to remember that the Yankees were never going to be a pushover, that the Mariners were never going to be a pushover. And remember, the Mariners were up 0-2 or up 2-0 after the first two games in Toronto. What the Blue Jays did to come back and win it in 7 is admirable, to say the least. So, of course, the Dodgers are going to be just as difficult to beat. But I have this funny feeling that the world is going to favor the Dodgers. The world is going to favor the fact that the Dodgers have the best player on the planet and possibly in the history of the game. And the Dodgers are, of course, the defending champions. So the Blue Jays are going to roll into this as the clear underdogs. And this is a relentless baseball team here in Toronto, and they have proven it. And every time someone doubts them, they overcome. So I said this on the air after the victory in game 7. I believe the Blue Jays are the Dodgers' worst nightmare, and I hope it unfolds that way.
I think I do too, and I think it will. I mean, if there's any team in baseball that could, just embrace that underdog role, it's the Jays, right? They've come from behind more than anybody else all season long. They didn't make it easy, in this series or in any
Mm-hmm.
series, right? Everything's just so close, tying the Yankees and just sneaking out getting the home field advantage there, taking it down to the wire against the Mariners, and the seventh inning, like you could almost not get much closer and nail biting than that. But that's what they've done all year. They don't panic. They don't get nervous when they're down late in the game. They've got so much trust, and anybody in that lineup from 1 through 9 can get
Mm-hmm.
it going at any given time, right? So I agree with you. I think it's going to be a great series.
But at worst, and I encourage people to remember this. I know this isn't what most people want to hear. At worst, it's really important, and maybe this just comes from a guy that carries cancer, to enjoy the journey. We live in a society that is based almost entirely on instant satisfaction, um, and results. And let's be honest, the Dodgers are good. They could sweep all four. They could win the series in whatever time it takes. And that will be a grave disappointment to a lot of people. I understand that. But this journey this year, especially from around Canada Day on, when they assumed first place and never let go, has been so enjoyable. I tend to look at it as it almost doesn't matter in the craziest way whether they win or lose the World Series. The fact that they're here and we get to extend our enjoyment of what they're doing is almost more meaningful to me than the satisfaction of what the result could be. And maybe that's because I'm 58 and I was right there in 92 and 93 and was able to absorb everything that was happening. I want them to win this World Series so that all of those people that came after 93 can understand what it's like. So selfishly, that's why I want the Blue Jays to win. It's not so much for me, it's for everybody else who's never seen it. But that said, I would really encourage people to make sure they relish these moments, relish the games, and try not to get too upset if the result isn't what you look for.
That's one of the things I kind of thought about that after they beat the Yankees and the big celebrations and stuff, and all the non-Jays fans that were online going, "Oh, they just celebrating like they won the World Series," and it's like, well, no, they're taking in the moment, they're living in the
Mm-hmm.
moment as they are,
Mm-hmm.
because you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Enjoy where you are now. Enjoy what you've gotten there. So I think that's the way that I've been thinking about it this whole time. And of course, I was 5 going on 6 in 93 when they won the World Series. So I have a vague memory of it, but like you, I was there. I would like to see, when I can actually remember it and absorb it and take it in. But I do agree with you that we fly through life too fast these days and don't sit around and absorb what's going on around us and sitting on our phones all day, all night. And I'm guilty of it too. I'm sure we all are. We've all done it. But I think, this is a good lesson in that, like you said, to just enjoy, think back through the season and the ups that we've had, the
Mm-hmm.
downs that we've had, and just relish in where we've gotten to. And the fact that it's brought in a whole country together in a time when the world is so divided, everybody's on board right now. And it doesn't matter where you're from, who you are, what side of left or right you're on, everybody's on the same page for something, which feels special to me.
Yes, the timing of this is fascinating, given that suddenly our good friend of the South feels more like an adversary some days, not because of the people, but because of the person in power. And maybe there'll be some symmetry if the Blue Jays can pull this off after winning the division, beating the Yankees, coming back to beat the Mariners, and then if they can do this, beating what some people should probably call America's team right now, even though the best player is Japanese, the Los Angeles Dodgers, it will feel a lot like when Connor McDavid scored that overtime winner at the Four Nations, right? That
Yeah.
there is very little we as Canadians can do about what the people running the United States think of us. But there is something that this baseball team, comprised mostly of American born players, could do to show them that we're a stronger country than they think.
I agree. With that said, got Bichette looking like he's going to be back in the lineup now for the World Series. Where do you slot him in? If you're playing, Schneider's role here, where do you put him in? Is he DHing? Is he back at four? Is he, going in somewhere else in the lineup?
That depends. I've really been impressed, as have many people, by the defensive play of Andres Jimenez at short. That is obviously Bo's position. It causes a little bit of difficulty in that respect as to where he would slot. But my guess is, based on the progress that he's made, which, as much as he says he's ready, we've still seen these situations where 4 hours before a game last week, he was running the bases and then pulled up with soreness in the leg. Maybe the DH is the only possible position for Bo in the World Series if he is, in fact, part of the roster. And if that's the case, then George Springer, who has thrived as the designated hitter, is going to have to go back into right field. And then that just impacts everybody else. Look, it's not there's no hardship here. You're asking among the best hitters in the game to come back into your lineup. So let's not make this something that it's not. It's a good thing that Bo Bichette may be ready. Where he slots in the order doesn't seem to matter. He should probably be restored to his rightful position, but I would guess positionally, he'll be a designated hitter, Springer in right, and then they'll just form the lineup around that.
Makes sense to me. Well, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I know you're going to have a busy week getting ready for this World Series. I appreciate you taking the time today, and thank you for lending your slogan to those T-shirts in the hospital's fundraiser that's going on there from the city of Timmins. And I just appreciate everything you've done for us up here. And just want to say, go Jays, go!
Awesome. Thank you for having me, Shane. I appreciate it, and bless the people of your fine city. I love every chance I can get to get up there.